So before we get to the KPIs, let's talk about why marketing is the problem.
Yeah. Thanks for phrasing it that way. Welcome to Dear Frannie, the franchise advice column. I'm your host, Katherine LeBlanc. And along with my co-host, James Vitrano, we've spent our careers inside growing franchise systems. From marketing to operations, we break down real questions and real challenges and share the kind of answers you only get from experience. Let's jump in. Thanks for joining Dear Frannie. I'm your host, Katherine.
And I'm her co-host, James.
Hey, James. So this week we're starting with another this or that question. What do you have for me?
All right. This or that. Do you start franchising with one proven location or wait until you've built multiple corporate locations? Let's say, Katherine.
Okay, I'm going to take the side of it's okay to franchise with one proven location. I'm going to give a big caveat to that, though. In franchising, one of the things that franchisees look for and every good franchisor is going to deliver is solid unit economics. And so your first location has to have solid unit economics. And what I mean by that is, typical rule of thumb is you want your franchisees to take home about 20% of their sales in profit. And if you're franchising, about 10%, you're going to collect about 10% of their sales in fees between royalties and tech fees and training fees and this and that. And so to have solid unit economics in one proven unit, you really want to be at a 30% EBITDA, meaning you're taking home 30% of what you're selling. So if you have that, yes, I think it's fine to start franchising with one proven unit. And you do that when, you don't have the capital or you don't have the time to really grow on your own. And so that's the beauty of franchising is you're growing with other people. It really helps you grow faster than if you're just growing by yourself. The other reason why I would franchise on one unit is if you have a concept that is so unique and kind of easy to operate, it's going to be replicated. And so first to market or, first movers is a real thing. And so getting the ground going around your growth and an expansion is really important. Your first to market advantage is something that you want to protect. So those are the ways that I would think about franchising if you just have one unit. What about you, James? What do you think?
As usual, I think it's well articulated, but absolutely flawed.
Okay, tell me more.
One unit, congratulations. You've thought of something that somebody likes or a good number of people like in one area. But you've proven nothing. You've proven no concept. You've proven no out of market. You've proven no out of state. You've proven you can open one concept that has made some money and that people in your area like. You've not dealt with distribution issues. You've not dealt with regionalization preference. You've not dealt with consumer recognition. And here you come wanting to take my money to prove your concept out in other areas. So if I'm looking to put my money out since we're able to caveat today, the caveat that you are not doing $10 million of top line and 30%. But if you're just a regular restaurant chain, location making $1 million to $2 million or less with nice flow through, not going to put my blood, sweat, and tears on the line and money to see if your concept in Albuquerque works in Nashville.
Yeah.
So I would like to see you at least open in another market, preferably out of state. And then that's going to give me a little bit of confidence. I do think, though, that your marketing point is really, really interesting. If you're talking about something that's new or differentiated and you want to go to market first, there is an argument there. I do think, however, that that's something that you need to be really clear about with your prospective franchisees, and perhaps a caveat in the FDD associated with potential risk, given the fact that you only have one. But my preference on the this or that would be that concept is proven in other markets.
Yeah, and I think that's really fair. I think that we rush to franchise often, and it's often due to the pressures, the external pressures you're hearing from your friends and family around let's grow, let's grow. And the franchise consultant world of I can franchise this and give me a shot. So when you hear, for me, it's like, okay, as a small business owner, I've reached a level of success. Yes, I believe that this is something that's repeatable. I have, the franchise consultants banging on my door to franchise this concept. I mean, you do this. So tell me, what do you look for when you're looking for a location that's ripe for franchising?
Yeah, it's really a good question. I look for multiple. First and foremost, no, I look for a really interesting concept. Food's got to be good.
Mhm.
Offerings got to be solid. People have to like it, right? Secondly, the owner, founder, operator has to be good, like a good person and good at what they do. Thirdly,
Mhm.
my preference would be that you have some tenure, some operational history. It's not just the first year or two. And I think the last thing would definitively be that there's profitability associated with it. But I think it's really important, right? I made this mistake before. Growth is good, but growth is also bad. And so
Yeah,
you can grow too early. And if you start growing via franchise and you're growing with other people's money, which is a positive, but also an obligation. So,
that's right.
it's
Yeah.
it's something that you need to think about. I think, you know, to your point, there is pressure, right? But there's also plenty of time. What is your thought on the right balance of concept ahead,
Mhm.
meaning beating somebody else with your cupcakes or your chicken or
Mhm.
your grilled cheese versus putting the time in to ensure that you have something? What do you look for when you're talking to somebody?
Well, I think that the thing I'm looking for, the thing that I kind of advise on is when you start franchising, you've now changed your business completely. And so
Yeah,
you are not a
good point.
restaurant or a jump house. You are
Yeah.
now a franchise. And so if you're not ready to start operating, you have to operate differently as a franchisor, and the support that you are obligated. I think obligation is a really great word to use in the scenario where you are inviting others, yes, to grow and to build wealth with you, but with that you have an obligation to see them succeed. And especially in those early days, you're working together to build this. And if you're not approaching it with that in mind, that's when the wheels come off. When kind of the red flag that I see is if you're looking to franchise only because of growth, right? Only because, oh, well, somebody told me that I can grow faster when I bring on franchisees, and you're not really understanding what bringing on franchisees means. That's where I've seen it time and time again. The founder hates franchising, they hate their franchisees. They can't believe they put themselves in this position. And, I do think that some soul searching around, am I ready to build a business that is not making food, it is helping others achieve their small business dream. And it's okay if the answer is no, I'm not ready to do that, but I still want a franchise. Then you have to bring on somebody that knows what they're doing. There's bare minimum viability of a franchise. Once you reach that minimum viability, if you're thinking about franchising, I really want the idea to be yours and not one that was brought to you by somebody else. And I want you to understand that when you start franchising, you've changed your business model.
It's a really good point, right? Running a restaurant is hard. Running a franchise business operations is different than running a restaurant.
Yep.
And when you start taking other people's money, then you have a variety of obligations and emotions associated with it. So I think, the sort of summary of this or that is do it for the right reasons. Do it once you've gotten the table stakes under your belt, and do it knowing that it's not just restaurant operations. It's now a different business model.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good summary. All right. Let's jump into our Dear Frannie question. So today we have a franchisor asking, when growth stalls, how do I tell if I'm dealing with a marketing issue, an operations issue, or something deeper in the business? So I'll start off. I just love the way that this question is asked because they're asking, what type of issue should I be dealing with? As a marketer, when growth stalls, all eyes land on you because obviously it's a marketing problem. But it's not always a marketing problem. And so, I love, this is saying, okay, how do I tell which problem it is? When we're talking about growth though, James, what are some of the key KPIs? So KPIs is you know, something that gets thrown around. It's key performance indicators. So these are the numbers that we watch that really indicate whether or not the business is performing well. Most folks have pretty standard KPIs. Sometimes, depending on your business, you have slightly different ones. But what are the metrics that you usually look at when you're looking at, hey, is this business healthy? Am I growing?
First KPI is marketing doing anything. First rule of thumb is always marketing's problem. So
But
if I
well,
can,
let's dig into that. Why is that always? I mean, that is always what we go to is we have a growth problem. What's wrong with marketing?
yeah, look, I think marketing is an enigma in levels, right? Like it's such a necessary, but there's also a complete like ethereal concept that doesn't mean one thing and is
Hmm.
unbelievably like important to the business, right? And as a small business owner myself, marketing isn't cheap. It's not easy. It's a whole different business mindset. It's not
Hmm.
just running a restaurant. It's rare that you can feel dreams a restaurant. And if you build it, they will come. They
Right.
may come once, but all of them aren't. So there's this whole like marketing challenge for non-marketers to determine what needs to be done, how to do
Hmm.
it, why
Hmm.
to do it. And then there's just an internal frustration with a operator or executive that isn't a marketing person. So I think it's just this weird rub. As a
Yeah.
lawyer,
Well.
it's a little bit like legal. As a lawyer, right? Like
Mhm.
I understand the legal side of things, but non-lawyers sometimes don't. So there's this frustration with legal. It's the same thing with marketing. So before we get to the KPIs, let's talk about why marketing is the problem.
Yeah. Thanks for phrasing it that way. Yeah, let's talk about why marketing is a problem. And look, I think that it comes down to two things. One is that marketing is your revenue engine, number one, full stop. And when marketing is your revenue engine, that's who you look at when your revenue is not doing what you need it to do. And so, as a marketer, I also come back to as your revenue engine, there's certain things that I can control. And I, not me being a puppet master, but that marketing can do. Marketing can raise awareness. The goals of marketing is to get your business top of mind to a consumer at the time that they are making the decision to do whatever it is that you offer. And so I get top of mind a couple of ways. One is overall brand awareness. And so when you hear about brand awareness, it is all of the things that you do in general to make your company known to your key consumer. And when James talks about how marketing is hard, especially at that small business level, those activities are showing up at the festival, going to the Chamber of Commerce, taking one-on-one meetings with people for people to get to know you. It is a lot of time and a lot of sweat equity involved in growing brand awareness and for your small business. So that's brand awareness. The second piece of marketing is kind of what I call the transactional piece, where it's the moment of decision and I need to be where the consumer is at that moment of decision. Now, we've gotten kind of lazy in the small business community and business communities in general because we think that everyone is at that moment of decision on Facebook. Well, that's not always true. But those are the two places that I have to be as a marketer: brand awareness, establishing myself as top of mind for you so that when you are ready to make your decision, I'm one of the three things that's already in your head. And then that transaction at the moment of decision, I'm showing up wherever you are. And so that's kind of,
But those two things are A, unbelievably hard, and
yeah.
B, have like subparts A through triple Z,
Oh, of
right?
course. Yeah.
And,
No,
and
they
that's
do.
and that's why you get blamed at the end of
Yes,
the day, because
exactly. Yeah.
those are two really big buckets with a lot of elements that require a lot of effort, and
Yep.
especially in a small operation, there's nobody to do it but me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
we as restaurant executives or operators don't want to do that, but need to. So I do think that
Yeah.
there's a conversation relative to what's wrong with my business. To answer the question, right? It's
Hmm.
probably marketing. It really probably is
Well,
because
okay. However, I'll say this. So that's kind of the two layers of marketing. And then to your point, right, there's a lot of stuff that goes in there. And what you'll hear me say this if you ever work with me time and time again. Marketing is momentum. And so it's not just showing up at this festival, it's showing up at the festival every single week. And it's, what you do today impacts 6 months from now. So when all eyes turn to marketing, one of the frustrating parts of being a marketer is I cannot impact tomorrow. I can impact 6 months from now. I can impact 3 months from now. The channels that I have available to me to impact tomorrow are discounting and major spend
Yeah.
and levers to talk to the
Well,
customer.
let me jump in on you on there. So what I think is really important that I've learned today is immediacy and marketing don't go hand in hand.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
secondly, I think that why I said everything is wrong when something is wrong, it's usually marketing, is because as a small business owner myself, I hear people coming into our restaurants or our concepts saying, I didn't know you were here. Right. And that is a marketing problem.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
And that's a failure on my part to implement brand awareness elements, pick one, A through
Yeah.
triple Z, right?
Yeah.
So why I say is it's usually marketing is because top line initiatives really solve all problems. Now, let me come back to a couple of things to answer the Dear Frannie question, right?
Mm-hmm.
A, you better understand your cogs every day.
Mm-hmm.
That's like from an operation standpoint, let's presume the question asker person has a concept that people like I'm presuming the food is good, I'm presuming the
Mm-hmm.
service is good, I'm presuming the atmosphere is good,
But
right?
see, but that would be my point, is that all the best marketing in the world drives as many customers through your door as possible. But
Yeah,
if they only come one time,
yeah,
that is not a marketing problem.
I would agree. So let's go back to KPIs, right?
Right.
Like A, average check, B,
Yep.
cogs, C, repeat guests.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
If you have repeat guests, then you really don't have an operations issue
Yep.
or an offering issue, right? If you do not have repeat guests, there's a problem. And
Yes.
that's not going to be a marketing problem in
Yeah.
my opinion.
Yeah.
Right now, if you have static to declining new transactions, maybe it could be a bit of both, right? But I
Sure.
think first and foremost, if I'm KPIing what's wrong with my business, it depends on what issue I'm looking at. If it's profitability from a flow through standpoint, then you need to look at your cogs and you need to look at your labor, right?
Mhm.
But if it's top line, then you need to look at A, your marketing, and B, your experience, right?
Yeah.
By
So
experience,
marketing is, to your point, what traffic, and then experience would be repeat guests.
yeah,
Yep.
that's sort of top
Mhm.
line, right? So I think to sum it up from my perspective without diving into it for 30 minutes, if you are trying to diagnose the problem relative to a growth stall, first and foremost, we all agree it's marketing. So just being great marketing. Secondly, you have to determine, is it a flow through profitability issue in the, so that's
Mhm. Mhm.
cogs or labor typically,
Mhm.
or is it a top line issue? And is it repeat guests or lack of new transactions? And I think the last thing would be keep an eye on average check. Just keep an eye on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and look at when I talk about marketing being a revenue generator, the three places that we can generate revenue is driving new people in, getting them to come back more often, and getting them to spend more when they're with us. And so to identify, are you dealing with a marketing issue, an operations issue, or something deeper, the things that we're kind of saying to look at is it traffic? If it's traffic, then yes, it's a marketing issue. Is it repeat customers? If it's repeat customers, then I would say it's an ops marketing issue. I think that oftentimes we don't involve marketing in the guest experience. At least the small businesses don't. The big businesses do, because they understand we have to connect the messages that we're using to get people in to their experience within the location. And so if it's a repeat guest issue, then we need to understand, are we driving the right people through our doors? And if we say yes, we are driving the right people through our doors, then why aren't they coming back? And I would look at, depending on the concept, you can look at, are they dropping off after the first visit? Are they dropping off after the second visit? Are they dropping off after the third visit? It's important to dig into that, because if you've gotten, we don't often talk about the power of the second visit. If you don't get them in for that second visit, then you've wasted all of your marketing and all of that effort that we talked about and how hard it is to get people actually through the door. And so, really looking at what is the drop off between first and second visit, and then what is the drop off between that second visit and whatever the sticking point is, right? So, for example, one brand I'm working with, the sticking point is 4 visits. If they can get 4 visits, then the likelihood of them sticking around for another 12 months is really high. And so then it's developing programs to get them to that sticking visit. And that is different for different businesses. But essentially, you're trying to, it can't always be a traffic problem. And you have to look at, are you creating a stickiness within the business in order to keep those people coming back more often? And that's when you can tell if it's a marketing or an operations issue, in my opinion.
And again, it's always marketing.
Yep. Well, and let's say, there's usually something that marketing can do to help fix it. I do believe that,
Look,
and
marketing will say it's always operations. So at the end of the day,
yeah, okay, that's fair.
yeah,
That's
fair.
fair.
Yeah,
That's fair. The magic happens when marketing and operations work together, and
amen.
it's not a blaming, we're not saying it's one or the other. We're saying we have a problem. How are we going to fix it together?
Well, and I think, look, to one of the huge takeaways from this one is, as an operator, marketing is not an immediacy solution, right? So you
Yeah.
got to put on your hat of long-term vision from an investment standpoint, because despite what TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, or Facebook may be telling you, you don't create customer trend and or customer acquisition and or customer momentum overnight.
Yeah. All right. So let's jump into our top 6. So that's your number one takeaway. What are 2 other ones?
I think a couple of things. So one, marketing is always the problem. Two, marketing isn't immediate. Number three would be back to the original this or that, right? Make sure when you're ready to go into franchising, you're ready to shift your mindset from restaurant operations to a restaurant business offering.
Yeah.
Yours?
Yeah, and my top 3 would be from this or that. When you're thinking about franchising, the value of that second or third location may be the make or break difference in understanding how to support your franchisees. And so really thinking about that before you jump into franchising with just one location. Number 2, I think that James is right. Marketing is always the issue. And as marketers, how do we have a different conversation? How do we move it from blame to collaboration when growth stalls? If you were to take away one thing from here, would be number 3 would be the KPIs of traffic count, repeat business, COGS, labor.
Yeah.
And if you know those 4 things, then you can quickly diagnose if it's a marketing issue, an operations issue, or something deeper in the business.
Yeah. I think you got to say, is it top line or flow through? And then we can figure it out.
Yeah, that was a good takeaway. All right. Well, great. Well, thanks for joining us for this episode of Dear Frannie. And if what we talked about sounds familiar, you're not alone, and we welcome you to the conversation.